Good point. All right, good. Let's get started. Any questions? Pardon me. Any questions before we continue? Anything particular from this morning? All right, good. So then let's look at these 25 herbs. So as I mentioned before, the flavor that benefits or that tonifies the organ is going to be the flavor that rules the category, right? So pungent herbs are all wood category herbs. And so all pungent belongs to wood. This is all from the decoction classic. All pungent belongs to wood. It is governed by gueji. So gueji is considered to be the wood herb of the wood class. It's a stick of wood. It's a twig. It's pungent. It's warm. It's it's the archetypical herb to represent the wood element. Of course, from the signature, then a main function is that it actually supports the heart. It has a little bit of a reddish color to it on the inside and so forth. But aside from that, it's considered to be the archetypical wood herb. It fans the wind that will stir the flames, that will support the fire. It'll help float the young from the heart all the way to the periphery, etc., etc. So gueji is the wood herb of the wood category. Jiao or su jiao or tuan jiao or hua jiao, whatever you want to call it, like it's got multiple names. That's the Sichuan pepper, and that's considered to be the fire herb of the wood category, right? Wood category because it's pungent. It is able to fan the wind, to stir the flames, to build the fire, right? That's the same principle. Now, it is able to build the fire in relationship to fire element, right? And here specifically, I would think the signature, the good quality huajiao is reddish in color. That's one part of the signature. I think it kind of has this kind of chambers of the heart kind of shape, right? It's kind of pericardium. It's kind of hollowed out on the inside, so it's kind of has that shape as well. Also, its effect when you take it, it's very numbing to the tongue. Like the effect is first and foremost felt at the tongue level because it's really numbing. It's that kind of numbing spice that you have in Sichuan cuisine as well. Therapeutically, it's used a lot for pains in the under the heart region, and the under the heart region very specifically, that's the region of the heart front mu point. That's in the old times, this area here was called kind of the heart region, right? Probably a remnant of the fact that the stomach used to be the fire element in Chinese medicine. Before, in Eastern Han Dynasty, they finally settled on the current appropriation of the elements and the organs. But before then, there's plenty of books you can find where the lung is metal and the liver is I don't know, maybe I don't know what the liver was, but lung is not metal. Lung is wood, liver is metal. Stomach is fire. Like you can find plenty of references to different types of appropriations of elements and organs. Only in Han Dynasty they finally just settled on it and said, yeah, this is actually the best, most plausible system. It makes more sense this way when you apply it and you test it and you utilize it in analysis and stuff like that. It always rings through. So that's kind of how they settled upon it. So the region where huajiao especially has that kind of pain controlling effect is the under the heart region, the epigastrium kind of CV14 region, right? The heart front mu point region. Jiang is ginger, right? Whether that's ganjiang or shengjiang, doesn't matter. So it's ginger. When you have a fresh ginger and you cut it, it's bright yellow, right? It's the bright yellow color. So of course that's why it goes to the earth, right? Its signature makes it go to the earth. It's pungent and warm. So it is pungent and warm to stir the wind, to fan the flames, and then take that warmth and put it inside the earth. That's the goal of being a warm, pungent herb that rules the earth category. It's a root that grows underwater. It's dispersing for damp and moisture because, of course, underneath the ground there's moisture. It's kind of like a muddy soil. So those kinds of things. So that's why ginger is considered to be the earth herb of the wood category. Shishin azarum is the metal herb of the wood category, right? It is considered metal because it's a leafy substance. So the whole debate about, it should be the stems only, not the leaves, that's flawed. It has to have the leaves, of course. You need that chlorophyll. You need the intensely strong scent, which you don't have if you only have the stems. If you don't have the leaves, you don't have the aroma. You have to have the aroma because, of course, it has to open your lungs, and if it has to open your lungs, it better hit your nose from the get-go, right? So, and then the whole argument, yes, but there's aristolochic acid in it. Yeah, exactly, there is. That we need it. Otherwise, how do you think it's going to move water? You know, you need there's nothing wrong with aristolochia per se. It's just wrong when you use it on the wrong patient for too long in the wrong amounts and all that stuff. That's what's wrong. The practitioner is what's wrong, not the plant, right? So whenever you need it, and it's not going to hurt you. That's just how it is. You know, even toxic substances like gansui and bado, and when you need it, and it won't hurt you. Right? But it's up to us. We are the only insurance against side effects. Right? The practitioner's skill is what assures against side effects. That's just how it is. So if you want to bulletproof your practice, become a better practitioner. And that's always how I look at that. Right? So shishin. It's a leafy substance. It goes to the lungs. It brings yang back in the lungs. It disperses cold away from the lungs. It disperses stagnant cold water away from the lungs. It is considered the metal herb of the wood category. And then fudze is the water herb of the wood category, right? So fudze, the black warrior, right? It's when you look at an aconite root, the skin on the outside is dark, is black, right? So with its black color, it's able to take its warm, young reviving, cold dispelling, water expelling qualities to the kidney level, right? So it's pungent, so it fans the wind to stir the flames, to build yang, and then wear yang in the kidneys underneath the water, right? So that's basically what fudze is going to do. So fudze is considered to be the water herb of the wood category. The salty herbs are herbs that belong to the fire element or to the heart, right? Because the heart wants to be soft. We talked about that. You know, that's represented in the fact that the blood needs to be soft, the thoracic cavity needs to be flexible, the mind has to be flexible and soft, you know, not too rigid and not too hard. So the heart category is ruled by salty flavor because that's the main softening flavor, right? Xuanfuhua, which is the Inula, Inula floss, is the herb that governs the category. Now, there's not a whole lot of use of it. I mean, in the Tang Jing, there's more use of it. They've got plenty of prescriptions that use Xuanfuhua inside of them because they're always kind of using this chart, and then they kind of build the formulas based on the chart. So if they want to tonify the earth, sometimes they just tonify the mother of the earth, and then they tonify the mother of the earth with a salty flavor, you know, and then build it with formulas that directly tonify the earth. Not really how we use it that much. Dandong only uses Xuanfuhua twice, right? One more well-known formula is Xuanfu Dai Zitang, right? For when there's a lot of adverse flow, right? Adverse flow from the stomach, right? Where there's a lot of hiccups and adverse flow from the stomach. So that's why, again, Xuanfuhua embodies the descent as a countering force against the rebellious ascent, right? So if there's rebellious ascent against the south, then you tonify the south with its symbolic, salty, red and warm medicinal Xuanfuhua to force descent, right? So that's basically the principle behind it. So Xuanfuhua, like I said, it's salty, it's warm, it's red in color. I mean, nowadays when you look at Xuanfuhua, I think it's probably a quality issue where it's not even very red anymore. It's kind of a yellowish, maybe a little orangey if you're lucky, but it's mostly yellowish. So it's not really, I think it's probably a quality issue. I don't know what it is. But originally it should be very red in color. Right? Dahuang is the wood herb of the fire class, the wood herb of the salty category. Basically, it means, if you're a salty herb, it means you are a softening herb, right? So you're a softening herb, so you tonify the fire element. And if you're the wood herb, it means you tonify fire to control metal so that metal would not crack down on wood. So basically, your goal is to keep the wood physiology in shape, right? And then the wood physiology in this case is I would interpret it as a blood physiology. You know, you're making sure that the dryness is not invading the blood storage. That's basically how I would look at that. So that's why Dahuang, in the in the Tangjing is mentioned as a salty herb. It's softening. It controls the dryness of the metal. Make sure that metal is not too hard, right? Because if metal is too hard, it'll cut down on the wood. So to prevent that, you keep metal under control so that the wood is safeguarded. Practically speaking, it takes the dryness of the metal element out of the blood, keeps it away from the blood to make sure that the blood physiology stays nice and healthy. So it's a blood stasis eliminating herb, blood dryness eliminating herb, right? Lots of formulas in the Shahanlan use it as such. Why do you focus so much on the blood physiology, Arnaud? Because in the Bencaojing, that is the main function attributed to Dahuang. You know, this in the first 5 or 6 functions mentioned in the Bencaojing, I think there's 4 that are mentioning blood physiology, right? And then only after that it starts to talk about pushing out the old, allowing for the arrival of the new, those kinds of things, right? Having more the purgative effect, right? But most of it is talking about blood physiology. Zhe already mentioned a little bit before. It's like one of the last surviving salty diuretics, right? So basically, by being a salty herb, you tonify the fire element. In the case of Zhe being the earth, you're basically going to tonify the fire element to benefit the earth, to give birth to a healthier, stronger earth. And a healthier, stronger earth means an earth that can transport, transform, that can produce energy to supply with all the other organs, and that is not too damp. Because the earth, by virtue of its location, of course, being so humble, being so low down, all the fluids flow to the earth ultimately, right? So the earth is easily kind of bogged down by damp and so forth. So that's why you need to make sure that the earth stays nice and dry. And so that's why I said Zhe actually works on the small intestine, right? Zhe works on the small intestine by promoting its separating function. It allows it to fulfill the separation of pure and impure, which basically means urine from solids, right? Liquid waste from solid waste. Liquid waste, you send it towards the bladder. That's a trickling down effect, right? It's going to trickle down basically through the peritoneum into the lower burner, collect in the bladder, and then you'll expel it, right? While the solids, they have to stay in a pathway. You wouldn't want the solids to trickle down through the peritoneum. You want to keep those nicely in a plastic bag so that you don't spill them anywhere, right? So then you let those kind of flow out through the large intestine. As the small intestine gives the solids, which is at this point still semi-solid though, there's still a lot of water in it, as it gives those to the large intestine, then by virtue of the large intestine being the dry Yangming metal of the West, and if you think about it, the large intestine is the only true dry Yangming metal of the West, right? Because the lung, its organ itself is a Taiyin organ, which is still the damp earth of the center. The stomach, yes, it's Yangming dry metal, but organ-wise, it's Yangming dry metal, but functionally still part of the earth element, which is still going to be damp earth of the center. So the lung and the stomach have still much more moisture in it than the large intestine, which has virtually no moisture in it in and of itself, right? So the large intestine is both elementally metal, which is dry by virtue of that, and both from its channel affinity, from its 6 qi quality, is also the Yangming dry metal of the West. So that's the true drying force of the body. So then when you are when the small intestine transmits the fecal matter, which is semi-dry, semi-moist or semi-solid, to the large intestine, as it transits through the colon, that's when, again, because we know that resorption, right? But that's when it dries out, the last stage of drying out, until it finally reaches the end, you know, which is the colon, where it should be in its perfect condition, the perfect dryness, the perfect amount of moisture, the perfect amount of formation, and so forth, right? And anything that throws that off, of course, then you have either too dry or too moist, right? But the large intestine is the true metal organ, right? So Zhe works on the small intestine, and therefore, by sending the turbidity through itself, by allowing it to pass through itself, and by pushing it towards large intestine or towards bladder, it is actually helping with the evacuation of turbidity from the stomach, therefore benefiting the earth. So it benefits the earth on a very functional level.